We're going to read from Proverbs chapter 11. We turn to Proverbs chapter 11, and we're going to read the whole chapter and focus really on the middle section of this chapter together. Proverbs chapter 11, beginning in verse 1. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. With his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. By the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm, but he who hates striking hands in pledge is secure. A gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. The wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Those of crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, the expectation of the wicked in wrath. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. The people curse him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. Whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. If the righteous is repaid on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner? Just pray and ask for God's help as we look at this. Our Father, we thank you for the wisdom that is in your word. We pray that you'll help us to understand it, to accept it as your truth, as your wisdom, and to put it into practice in our lives today, in the week ahead, throughout the rest of our lives. So we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to focus in today on Proverbs 11 verse 4 and the verses that follow it. Our theme this evening is righteousness versus riches. And I think why are those two things a good contrast? Well, at the end of the day, everyone is living for one or the other of those two things. Righteousness or riches. Proverbs 11:4 tells us this. It says, riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. That's the conflict that the writer of Proverbs here, Solomon, is setting up before us. There's riches that you could dedicate your life to, things, stuff, mammon, as the old word has it, or there is righteousness. And one gives you some things, the other gives you some things, which is really worth having. We read earlier on in Matthew chapter 6, you probably spotted that. Jesus says you cannot serve God and money, or you cannot serve God and mammon, or God and riches. You can't serve both. There's no option where you go, I'm going to live to be rich and godly as well. I'm going to serve both. Both are going to be equally important to me, and maybe the more rich I am, the more I'll use that to serve God, and maybe the more I serve God, the more rich he'll make me, and I'll kind of combine the two together, and I have this world of riches and righteousness where everything comes through really happily. You can't serve them both, Jesus says, and this is really what Proverbs 11 verse 4 is telling us. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath. Righteousness delivers from death. And Jesus' conclusion in Matthew 6, again we read this earlier, is, well, seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness. And all these other things will be added to you as well. It says you'll have your needs. He's not saying you'll have riches. You have your needs met. But seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, Jesus says, because that's the one thing that's worth seeking. It's not worth seeking riches, wealth, prosperity, extra money, extra stuff. The time that we live in is the time of God's patience. This is the age that we live in today. It's the age of God's patience with humanity. It's the age of God's patiently holding out the gospel. It's the gospel age of good news going out to the nations. Proverbs 11 verse 4 takes us beyond that. It says, what about the day of God's wrath? Riches will not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. In the day of God's wrath, riches will neither make you look good. Riches can make you look good today. They can impress people. It's like, look at my flashy car, look at my big house, look at the size of my bank account. Riches will not impress God, and they won't buy God off either. You go, God, will you get off my back if I give you a bit more money? In the day of God's wrath, the riches will cease to exist. When Christ returns and judges, everything that we see around us, everything you have in your bank account, everything you've got under your mattress will be gone, and it'll be you face to face with your Maker. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're tall, whether you're short, riches will not profit in the day of God's wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Righteousness does the one thing which nothing else can do. That's the point of this verse. Righteousness delivers from death. Riches can't do that. Big bank accounts can't do that. Money under your mattress can't do that. Big houses can't do that. Fast cars certainly can't do that. Righteousness is the one thing that delivers from death. It'd be great to go away and just practice this verse, wouldn't it? Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. If we had that in our minds, and if we lived by that, our lives would be very distinctly different from our friends and our neighbours and our family, wouldn't they? All our decisions are driven by righteousness instead of riches. Now you might think I have absolutely no pretensions to be rich, but we still make decisions, don't we, based on the things that I will have and the things that I will be able to enjoy and the savings that I will make and the savings that I will save and what's in my pension, and all those things become part of the ecosystem of thinking that drives our lives, don't they? Just like they do for everyone else. What is it that's going to make me happiest, make me have most things, make me richest? Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. So what is righteousness? Righteousness is the thing we need to know about. And this is really the theme of the next 15 or so verses in this chapter. What does righteousness do? What does it look like? We've already seen a bit about righteousness in the passages that we read earlier. See if you can scan your head back through. We've touched on Matthew chapter 6, Psalm 24 we read at the beginning. Paul points out in Romans that all along righteousness has been something that God gives. We can hear the word righteousness, can't we? We think it's how many good things I add up on my side of the account versus the bad things that I've done in the middle. And you have an occasional sin, you have some extra righteousness to even it out, and I'm sort of balanced on the righteous side of the equation. But the first time we have the word righteousness in the Bible is actually in Genesis 15 verse 6. Genesis 15 verse 6, anyone quote that one by heart? Genesis 15 verse 6, where God is speaking about Abraham, and he says this. It says, "And Abraham believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness." As righteousness. Noah was a righteous man, wasn't he? Noah was a righteous man. He's the first righteous man that we meet in the Bible. And that doesn't mean Noah was a perfect man, and we know enough about Noah to know that was the case. But he was a man who was right with God. And God could look on that world and say, Noah, I'm going to save. He is a righteous man who is right with me. And for Noah, as is the case with Abraham, he believed God, and God counted it to him as righteousness. That's where righteousness comes from. Later, when God gives the law, he says, if you keep all the law, you could get righteousness, but you don't. God's the one who gives righteousness. So if anyone spotted that in Psalm 24, he will receive righteousness from the Lord. He will receive it. It's something that God gives. In Matthew 6, we're seeking God's kingdom and his righteousness. Righteousness is something which is God's, which he gives to those who come to him in faith. That's the way it always has been. That's the way it always will be. Righteousness from the law is something that you can't achieve, and you never will be able to. I've been reading through Romans with the girls at bedtime recently, and it's very clear in Romans chapter 9, where Paul's talking about the way that the Jews had sought to become righteous. It says in Romans chapter 9, verse 30, it says, "What shall we say then? That Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained it, that is a righteousness that is by faith. But that Israel, who pursued a law that would lead to righteousness, did not succeed in reaching that law. Why? Because they did not pursue it by faith, but as if it were based on works. They've stumbled over the stumbling stone." Righteousness is not, therefore, your sum of your good things. Have I done enough good things to outweigh my bad things? And I might fall on the righteous side. Righteousness is something which God has, which God gives, which you can receive from the Lord, a right status with him. But at the same time, righteousness isn't just some sort of abstract legal status. You go, okay, I've ticked the righteous box, I've believed in the Lord, I've got his righteousness, I've got my ticket for the day of God's wrath, and I'll wave my ticket at him and say, I've got my ticket, let me into heaven. Righteousness is a way of life. It comes from God, it comes from him by faith. But the point of the book of Proverbs, and here particularly in chapter 11, where about a third of the references to righteousness come in the book of Proverbs, it's a practical thing, which is a way of life of the righteous. But it's not that there's, I'll do my righteous things and I'll do a few wicked things, more righteous than wicked. There are the righteous who do righteous things, and there are the wicked who do what is wicked. And so the urge in Proverbs, to get a little bit closer to home in our Bible hunting tonight, in Proverbs chapter 2, verse 20, it says this is the purpose of Proverbs. Solomon is writing this for his son, He says in verse 1, if you receive my words, treasure up my commandments with you. What's that going to lead to? Well, he says it's going to deliver you from this, it's going to keep you safe from that. And he sums it up in verse 20. So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. That'd be a great ambition, wouldn't it, to keep to the paths of the righteous. These are the paths that the righteous walk in. Keep to those paths. That's why Proverbs is written. But why? What does righteousness do? You can see, if you look at riches, you can see what it does for people, right? It gives them the option of traveling the world in their retirement. It gives them lots to eat. It gives them a big house. Riches will do all sorts of things for you. It will buy people's favor. And as you go through the book of Proverbs, Solomon makes no secret of that. He calls out some of the things that riches will do for you. What will righteousness do? Well, there's three things that come out in this chapter that follow from that. Ultimately, it delivers you from death, and that's the reason why it's valuable. But on the way, righteousness protects you. Secondly, righteousness blesses others. And thirdly, righteousness brings real reward. There are three things that come out here in Proverbs 11 why righteousness is so much better than riches under your mattress. Righteousness, first of all, it protects you. It protects you. Let's go back in Proverbs chapter 11. I'm just going to read verses 5 to 8. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. So righteousness is not this laborious achievement you're working towards. It's a position, a direction, a path, which keeps you safe through life, Solomon tells his son, before it finally delivers you from death. Righteousness protects you. Righteousness protects you. It keeps you safe. It delivers from death in verse 4, not because it outweighs your bad when you stand at the gates of paradise, but because you've sought and found God's righteousness, and it's taken you on a very different journey through life with different hope. And it's a journey which means that you're protected and that you're delivered. That's what righteousness does. Now, let's have a look at the scenarios that Solomon's talking about here. So we need to understand how it is that righteousness protects you and delivers you. Because automatically our thoughts can go into the riches mindset, can't they? It's like, if I'm going to be protected and delivered, that means I'm going to be delivered from financial loss. It means I'm going to be delivered from ill health that stops me from getting the things that I want. It means I'm going to be delivered from people who don't like me and prevent me from getting the things I want. That's not the sort of deliverance that Solomon's talking about. Righteousness delivers from death. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath. Let's have a look at these scenarios. First of all, it delivers them from falling. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. It keeps his way straight. It delivers him from going crooked. An example of what going crooked can look like in verse 1, we have false balance is an abomination to the Lord. And the idea there is it's your commercial dealing. You've got a set of scales, and you knocked it slightly crooked. So you put your money on one side, you put your potatoes on the other, and the money goes down, and you go, here's your potatoes, but you've actually interfered with the weight, so you've interfered with the mechanism, such that you get a little bit less potatoes for your money. It's gone a little bit crooked. Your life's gone crooked, and that crookedness is coming out in how you deal with people. Now, the person who's got the potatoes may never know what happened. You've got extra money, so you've got extra riches, but God knows what's happened, and a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. A just weight is his delight. And that sort of crookedness might not be something that's a temptation to us in any of our jobs. I don't know if any of us work with that sort of weighing equipment. But there's all sorts of ways in which we can be tempted to put a crookedness into our lives for the sake of gain, can't we? In my job, one thing we have to do is, for some clients, we're paid by the hour. And you get people who'll say, "Oh, can we just up those hours a bit, so that when we get to the renewal with the client, they'll be favourable to paying us slightly more, giving us better terms, because it looks like we're doing more work for them." Okay, that's one way that you might start to go crooked for financial gain, and it seems very harmless, it seems very safe. It seems like you're getting something out of it. I was working in the public sector a couple of years ago, and you've got all sorts of, but it must happen in the private sector as well, but in the civil service and government, all sorts of crookedness going on and crooked deals. And someone said to my colleague, "Oh, I want to talk to you about this." And I'm not going to talk to Tom about it because he's a bit too straight down the middle. And basically they wanted to do a deal in the background so that they got some extra money out of this when this piece of work started, and everyone will benefit, won't they, except the taxpayer who has to pay for it. What happens to the righteousness of the upright? It delivers them. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight. It protects them from, well, you might say, protects them from making money, protects them from making extra money, from selling their potatoes at a better price. What it protects them from is it protects them from going off the rails, protects them from going over the edge of the cliff. It keeps their way straight down the middle, because that is the way that pleases the Lord. A false balance is an abomination to him, but a just weight is his delight. You can do something a little bit corrupt and achieve a gain, and it seems like you've won. You can do a bit of a shoddy job and still get paid for it. It seems like you've won. Righteousness is what you need to guard you, to make you straight, keep you straight, while the wicked, it says, falls by his own wickedness. The wicked sees that either side of the straight road there's like a mountain of money. It's quite attractive, right? You go, "Ooh, go off that side, and there's a gold mine. Go off this side, there's a magic money tree." But actually, there's a fall. There's a cliff that the wicked will fall over. Now, it may be that immediately you may end up with less money than the wicked who's gone off to one side or gone off to the other. But the destination is dangerous. Here's another example. Look at verse 6. "The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust." You know the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Potiphar's wife lusts after Joseph. Joseph, she's very attractive, but Joseph is a righteous man. He has God's righteousness, and when she invites him to come to bed with her, he leaves his cloak in her hands and he runs to get away from her. He's delivered. Now, at the end of the story, Joseph is the one who ends up in prison, isn't he? It doesn't seem to have worked out for him. He's ended up in prison. She's prosperous, and she and her husband, who doesn't understand quite what's gone on, are living prosperously and wealthily, and they've got everything they want or could desire. Joseph's the one in prison. But who sees what's happened? God sees what's happened. Where are their destinations going? They're going to very different destinations. Who's been taken captive? She's been taken captive. Not Joseph. Joseph has actually been delivered. He's been delivered from something far worse than an Egyptian prison. There's all sorts of ways that we might be tempted by a lust for things. There's not merely a sexual lust. It might be a lust for money, or a lust for stuff, or a desire for things which we don't have or which we shouldn't have. There's all sorts of ways that our desires might tempt us. How do we avoid going off the rails, again, going off one way or the other, and being taken captive by our desires? The rest of the world lives for their desires, don't they? And we can find that very tempting to, I really want this. I really want that. I really want her, or I really want him. How do we avoid being taken captive by that? God's righteousness is what delivers. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust. Why is righteousness so valuable? It's because it protects you and delivers you from the things which are really hurtful, really harmful, really destructive, and really costly. It may still end up that you're the one in prison and you're the one making less money, but you are the one who is righteous before God. The righteous are the ones who are going to be delivered. So also read verse 8. It says, the righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. It doesn't say that the righteous avoids all trouble. It doesn't say Joseph's going to avoid the prison. It doesn't say you're going to avoid making less money. The righteous is delivered from trouble. The wicked's route is walking them straight into it. There are these two paths through life, the righteous and the wicked. The wicked is the one who's walking into trouble, and he doesn't even see it coming. All of that trouble is of his own creation. It's things that he's made and put in his way. It's his own lusts. It's his own wrong route, and he's walking into it blindly, unseeingly, straight into disaster. Verse 7, when the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. He's looked at all these things that he's doing, and some of them are a bit crooked, and some of them maybe quite above board, and some of them are lustful, and some of them are not. But all his desires and all his hopes are going to perish. His expectation of wealth is going to perish too. Everything that he's looking forward to and seeing for himself, it's all going. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish. But righteousness delivers from death. Righteousness beats riches, because righteousness protects you from what is really destructive and from what is really harmful. Secondly, righteousness, it not only protects you, but it blesses other people. This isn't purely a me thing. And it is a me thing. It means that I'm going to go straight down the right route and not fall in a ditch or get captured. But righteousness also blesses others. And this is what Solomon goes on to teach his son in verses 9 to 15. Verse 9, with his mouth the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. By the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown. Whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps the thing covered. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Righteousness blesses others. So much for you. What about your neighbor? The righteous and particularly here what they say and what they don't say as well, has a real impact on the lives of those around them. The righteous are not merely there looking after themselves, but they are changing things for other people. And this is really important to Solomon. It's going to be really important that his son gets this, and that we get this as well. That we understand that part of God's gift of righteousness is not just we lead a different route, but that different route has a big impact on the people around us too. Let's have a look at the first scenario that we have here. The first scenario is one which, I'm sure it's always happened, but it's perhaps particularly common in the area of social media and people talking about each other slightly remotely online. It's a thing which is all to do with gossip and how you speak to people, how you speak about people, particularly behind their backs. Verse 9, with his mouth, or possibly with his touch screen or something, the godless man would destroy his neighbor. but by knowledge the righteous are delivered. Look at verse 12. Whoever belittles his neighbour lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps the thing covered. It can be very tempting to join in, can't it, with people who are... it seems childish, doesn't it? It's the thing that happens in a playground, but people who are saying, oh, you know what my friend or my relative or my neighbour or whatever is doing and how awful they are, and this is what they said to me, and they said this to me, and I said this to them, and I think they deserve it because of such and such and such. And gossip spreads faster and faster the more technology we have to support it, doesn't it? When you can forward messages on Facebook or whatever, it makes it all the easier to gossip about things very easily. That's very destructive, isn't it? It destroys relationships, it destroys families, it destroys society, but at the same time it's very easy to do, and it's something that happens all the time. That is what happens when the wicked speak about people. That's what Solomon's saying. He's saying, be careful that you don't get sucked into that. What the righteous does, what the man of understanding does, is he remains silent. He doesn't join in. He's trustworthy in spirit. He keeps the thing covered. He doesn't go around and blab what you said in confidence to him, to everyone else that he's trying to impress or that he's trying to run you down with. And so with his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbour. Being righteous has a big impact on the people around you, has a big impact on your neighbours. Your neighbours, people closest to you in any direction, right? It might be the people next door, it might be your family, it might be the people you meet at whatever club or the people you work with. But those people nearest to you are usually the people that you gossip most about and that you hurt most in what you say and what you write about them. If you're a righteous person, you're going to have the opposite effect on those rings of people around you, aren't you? Instead of destroying them and instead of breaking them down with what you say, you're going to be remaining silent, you're going to be trustworthy, you're going to keep things covered, and you are going to be delivered from that. So it has an impact on your neighbour, but it also has an impact broader than that on your city. Look at verses 10 and 11. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. By the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it's overthrown. It's very simple, really, the principle here. If it's good to be a righteous neighbour, if it's good to your neighbours to have you there being righteous, the more righteous people there are in a city, the better for that city. The more righteous people there are in Sidcup, living a righteous life, and saying the things that righteous people should say, the better it is for Sidcup. The more righteous people you have in London, living in righteousness and speaking in righteousness, the better it is for London. Now, what's the opposite of this is that the more wicked people you have, the worse it is for that city. It's by the mouth of the wicked, which starts off with gossiping about his neighbour. It's by the mouth of the wicked that ultimately a city is overthrown and that society comes to an end. It's by the wicked that the city is hurt and damaged and destroyed, which is why it says when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness in the city. You remember what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah is a very wicked city. And before God destroys it, before God sends sulfur and fire in it from heaven, he talks to Abraham. It's Genesis chapter 18. And Abraham says to God, what if there are 50 righteous people in that city? Would you destroy it? And God says, no, not if there were 50 righteous people. And Abraham he's almost like he's bargaining with God. He keeps bringing the number down. What if there's 40? What if there's 20? What if there's 10? What if there's... and God says, even the smallest number of righteous people, I'm not going to destroy that city. In the end, it's only Lot in that city who is righteous. The more righteous people you have, the better it is for that city in terms of facing God's wrath. but also the better it is for that city in terms of what's going on in it. What happened in Sodom was awful. There were awful things happening in that city. It wasn't just the whole thing around the homosexuality and the violent sexuality that you read about in Genesis, but if you read the book of Ezekiel, he comments on what it was like in Sodom, and they didn't care for the poor, and they oppressed people. There was all sorts of stuff going on in there, which was really bad for the people of Sodom, because in Sodom there was only one rather compromised, righteous person living there. And so it's a very bad thing for a city not to have many righteous people. A happy city is a city which is going to rejoice, is a city in which it's going well for the righteous, in which there are more righteous people, in which those righteous people are living in a righteous way, and they're free to do so, and they're free to speak in a righteous way, and that impacts the people around them and impacts that city. That's the way for a city to be blessed, is by the blessing of the upright. A city is exalted. And the more righteous people you have in a city, the more justice there's going to be, the more less false balances there's going to be, the more just weights there'll be, the more fairness, the more kindness, the more truth, and the more blessing in a city in which it's going well for the righteous. There's probably less righteous people in our land today than there have been for quite a while. In other parts of the world, it's gone the other way. If you go to the Far East, there's countries there where there was no one who knew the gospel, say 100 years ago, and now there are millions. In our country and in our city, there's less and less righteous people that have been in the past. And so you see less justice and less fairness and less kindness and less truth and less blessing as a result. And the city suffers and the nation suffers as well. The other thing about righteousness is there's safety for the nation. You see the thing about counselors, and obviously the counselors have to be counselors who are counseling the right thing in verse 14. Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Guidance comes from the integrity of the upright in verse 3, guides them. Righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight. And if you've got a nation with no guidance and no counsel from those who are righteous, that nation and that people falls. In an abundance of counselors, there is safety. And so there's safety for the nation in an increase of people practicing and living and speaking righteousness rather than wickedness. Like the individual wicked, a nation can fall by its own wickedness. Without righteous guidance, we fall into a pit. We live in a nation today where people think that the solution to problems, let's go back to where we started, is riches. Right? What's our problem? It's an economic one. If we had more money to spend on the NHS, if we had more money to pay people more wages, get more people into work, and regardless of which political party you favour, that's the solution, right? We're going to do this, and that will give us more money to spend on these things. We'll do this, and that will give more money to spend on those things. But if we have more money and we spend it on the right things, we'll solve our problems, and our nation will prosper. A nation doesn't prosper based on riches. A nation prospers based on righteousness. Our nation thinks the need and the solution is an economic one, but it's not. It is a righteousness issue. There's no quick fix for a nation off the rails. You don't. Obviously, you have to engage with politics. You have to look at who's going to best lead the nation. But you don't simply, by voting a new economic policy in, suddenly fix your nation. There is a fix. You need more righteous people. And you need those righteous people to be giving more righteous counsel, to be speaking righteousness, to be living righteousness. What we need in our nation is a gospel of righteousness through Jesus. We need more people hearing it, more people believing it, more people living it, more people speaking it and knowing it for themselves. Righteousness blesses others. That's how neighbours are kept safe. That's how cities are blessed. That's how nations are kept safe, by the righteous. So righteousness, versus riches, righteousness wins. when it comes to the people around you. But righteousness as well, finally, and briefly, because we've touched on this already, it brings real reward. I don't know if you know you must have read The Magician's Nephew. It's the sort of first chronologically of the Narnia stories, isn't it, when you look at the story chronologically. One thing that Aslan says in that to Diggory is that he says, all get what they want, they do not always like it. He's talking about the witch who has, she's gotten eaten from the tree and she's found her heart's desire, but she's also found despair. She's got what she wanted, but she's not going to like it. And the same is true for the wicked. So interesting proverb, isn't it, in verse 16. It says, a gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. That's what they wanted. They lived a violent life, they lived a crooked life, they manipulated other people, they twisted the truth, they attacked other people, and they got riches. And they've got it under their mattresses, they've got it in their bank accounts, they've got everything they ever wanted. And then there's the gracious woman who doesn't have huge bank statements, but she gets honor, and that's what she's wanted. Who's actually going to be happy? There's the man who is kind in verse 17, and he's kind to other people, and his kindness has benefited himself. He's gone out to do what is kind, and kindness has come upon him. He's one of those who's going to benefit from his kindness, as well as the other people around him, as well as his neighbour and his city. But at the same time, a cruel man, he's set out to be cruel, and he's going to hurt himself. The wicked, who has got riches, he's, trodden over other people, he's twisted those weights a bit, he's manipulated things, he's got what he wanted. He's got it. He's reached his destination. He's reached his goal. And verse 18, the wicked earns deceptive wages. He's found it's all a lie. It hasn't given him anything that lasts. It hasn't given him anything that's really valuable. It hasn't fixed his country's problems. It hasn't made the city happy. It hasn't helped his neighbours, and it hasn't even protected himself. But one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. If you plant righteousness, you'll get a reward which really matters, which really lasts, and that reward is real life. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness, verse 19, will live. But he who pursues evil will die. Righteousness, steadfast righteousness, is what you need, and it's the only thing that you need. It's not righteousness plus some riches and then you can live, or righteousness and these things and that will sort out the issues that we have in our country, or righteousness plus that. He who is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Righteousness is what you need to protect your way through life. It's what your neighbour and your city and your country need as well. And it's the one thing that, go back to verse 4, delivers from death. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. That righteousness that we need, that our neighbours need, that our city need, our country needs, is only found in Jesus, isn't it? It's only the way that Abraham found righteousness. He believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. As Solomon wrote to his son, find those ways of the righteous, walk in them, because that's the only wise thing to do. And that's what we need to be holding up to people around us, isn't it? We need to be saying to them, what you need is righteousness. It comes through Jesus. It's in him. Here is the gospel. Here's the good news of God's righteousness. Seek his kingdom and his righteousness before anything else, because it's the only thing that's worth finding. It's the one thing that delivers from death.